for day 128 of the second Trump administration. And what are we talking about tonight? Money, power, politics. As the whiplash over the president's tariff policy goes in one direction, it keeps going on. The stock market. Here's what the White House National Economic Council director had to say. If you are feeling confused, maybe this will clear it up. Watch this.
Are you thinking eventually tariffs will get down to the level that businesses can negotiate within, 10% or less? Or do you think that a lot of this is going to be paid by the American consumer, too?
Well, in the end, that's going to be up to the president. But we've seen that 10 is a place that a lot of people have been pushed to. And I would guess that if they come in with good enough offers, then they'll stay there or perhaps even below. But if they come in with retaliation and they don't open their markets to U.S. goods, then it'll go the other way.
So let's get this straight. We don't know what a good offer would be. That is the official word from the White House. So, again, let's level set. If you talk to businesses, big or small, they cannot predict what Trump will do next. But one thing has remained constant. When he makes a tariff announcement, markets tank. When he scales back tariffs, markets soar. There's even a nickname for it now, as coined by the Financial Times, the taco trade, short for Trump always chickens out. And consumer sentiment tracks those exact patterns. When people feel like the tariffs are coming, they worry. When they think that Trump's not going to go for it, they're happy. Now, for investors and market makers, it's actually a different story. They can trade around these announcements, right? Volatility means volume. But for businesses, this is paralyzing at best and crippling at worst. And here's what's interesting. Those close to his team have told me that Trump, in his heart of hearts, doesn't actually mind the market reaction when it's bad. In fact, he enjoys the power and influence he has over global markets. One single sentence, one post, one tweet erases or creates tens of billions, which is why so many are now asking if and who is given advance warning on any of these massive market-moving events. The answer for now, we do not know. But we and the rest of the world are going to keep watching. With that, let's bring in our leadoff panel tonight. I have missed them all. Jeff Mason is here, White House correspondent for Reuters. Leanne Caldwell, chief Washington correspondent for Puck News. And David Drucker, senior writer at The Dispatch. Okay, Jeff, the president's allies insist that his threats are just a negotiation tactic. How on earth can they be an effective negotiation tactic if we've seen it over and over? He backs off every time the market cracks.
Well, and then he goes back again. I mean, that's what he did with the EU last week, right? I mean, he made the threat about the European Union. But I think to your broader point, Steph, people are watching closely how he operates and are drawing lessons from that. And that's exactly why the president of the European Commission, President von der Leyen, called him on Sunday and said, hey, we need some more time to have a good deal. And this also kind of illustrates the way the president makes his decisions based on the last person he spoke to. He had that call. He felt like it was a good call and then made his decision. And I see you playing that clip. I was the one who asked him on Sunday about that call and if they had discussed tariffs. And that's when he said for the first time, yes, and it went well. And I'm going to delay this until July. And then, of course, markets were closed in the U.S. on Monday, but markets around the rest of the world went up and U.S. markets followed that today. So there's a pattern. And you're absolutely right. He goes forward. He pulls back. I don't think he's any less happy with the EU, or more happy, I should say, with the EU right now than he was when he made that threat on Friday. But he did like the fact that they came to him and no doubt said nice things. And that has an impact on his thinking and on his decision making as well.
Okay, David, economists are saying that there are concerns about policy direction in the United States lacking any sort of credibility and that the guardrails are coming off. What guardrails are they even talking about at this point?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the president sets the guardrails and they're here one day, they're over there the next day. You know, the thing about this, and you were getting to this, is markets seem to be able to work around this, right? They go down if Trump says something they don't like, and they shoot back up, and everything looks fine. And I think the president enjoys markets going up, even though he was the one that sent them down, because then he can take credit for them going up. But if you talk to businesses, and look, I've interviewed domestic manufacturers and businesses, And even though the president isn't suffering politically all that much right now, these businesses are suffering. They've had to scale back growth plans. Their profit margins are down for the year. They were expecting to do a lot better under a president they assumed would focus on tax cuts and deregulation, and not even though they expected him to focus on trade, not to this degree. And as long as this continues, things are going to be very tough for them, in particular because for a lot of the manufacturers that bring in goods from Europe, they placed a lot of these orders before the tariffs war went into effect. They've had to eat a lot of the costs. And so there are some real world consequences here. And I think the question is the U.S. economy going to end up somewhere different at the end of all of this, if we ever get to the end, than it was in the very beginning? In other words, will things be better or will they be the same? Never mind, will they be worse? And we don't have the answer to that question yet.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about manufacturing, because the president himself said that the goal is reshoring manufacturing in the United States. And I want to share a bit of what he said over the weekend.
We're not looking to make sneakers and T-shirts, and we want to make military equipment. We want to make big things. We want to do the AI thing with the computers and the many elements. But the textile, I'm not looking to make T-shirts, to be honest. I'm not looking to make socks. We can do that very well at other locations. We are looking to do chips and computers and lots of other things, and tanks and chips, meaning ships.
Yeah, chips. That's why they had the CHIPS Act. Like, let's just level set here. We already do make military equipment. We do the AI thing with computers. If Donald Trump, Jeff, doesn't want us to make textiles, doesn't want us to make sneakers or socks or T-shirts, why isn't he using targeted tariffs? Because right now, if you talk to any big clothing brand, they're struggling, they're strapped. They're saying, we don't actually make sneakers here. So what he's saying has no reflection on what he's doing.
I don't know the answer to your question in terms of the why behind this, but I think the impact that you're referring to is right. I also think, having spoken to others about this, that there are some people who feel that his tariffs and this sort of concentration on bringing manufacturing back to the United States is not putting the focus where it needs to be, which is on AI. Now, he did mention AI in that list of things that he wants the United States to do, but that is a huge part of the global economy and the U.S. economy going forward, and it's something that certainly AI proponents would like to see the United States be a leader on. And if you've got the head of the U.S. government focusing more on bringing back manufacturing jobs, then that could lead to at least a distraction from the jobs of the future.
Leanne, Kevin Hassett again said today that the administration, I want to talk about a specific company, does not want to harm Apple. But the president said on social media that Apple specifically will have to pay a 25% tariffs for iPhones that aren't made in the United States. Is the strategy here fear? And why Apple? They've played ball. They've done everything that he wants.
Yeah, strategy, Steph, I can't speak to the strategy, because what it seems like is Donald Trump, who, as we all know, has been a big believer in tariffs for a very, very long time. But it's almost like he's getting a real life lesson from perhaps Treasury Secretary Bessent in real time on what the actual impacts of these tariffs are. That's why he's changing from across the board tariffs to now saying no textiles. We just want electronics and the technology of the future to be made in the U.S. So it doesn't make a ton of sense. And yeah, you're right. Apple is trying to do everything it can to comply with what Donald Trump's demands are. Tim Cook has said he has moved some of the production, was going to move some of it to India to get out away from China, but that wasn't enough. And so it's mystifying. People don't really have a real explanation for it, and it's really inconsistent from where he started to where he